Republicans are continuing to try and figure out what to do about the bad news surrounding their bill that they passed. Josh Hawley is one of those senators. Why, you may ask? Because it sucks.
Just days after the passage of President Trump's sweeping domestic agenda, the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri says his goal is to ensure that one of its key Medicaid provisions never actually takes effect. Hawley worked to have the bill include an expanded fund for victims of nuclear waste and says that issue is why he was willing to vote for the bill despite all those drastic cuts to Medicaid.
You hate, if I could say that, some pieces of this bill, but you voted for it. Why did you choose that strategy?
Got to take the wins that you can. For me, getting RECA passed, getting health care expanded in Missouri for these survivors. I almost said the word victim. I hate that word. For survivors, these heroes. This is a multi-year journey, and this was the chance to do it. The provider cuts that are now not going to affect Missouri until the 2030s, my goal is to make sure those never take effect, I'll be honest with you.
How?
Well, by legislation. I mean, listen, they don't affect Missouri until 2030. And between now and then, Missouri gets $1 billion in increased rural hospital funds. That's great for our state. But the truth of the matter is we shouldn't be cutting rural hospitals. I'm completely opposed to cutting rural hospitals, period. I haven't changed my view on that one iota. We were able to delay it. We were able to get a plus up in funding for Missouri, which is terrific. But we shouldn't cut rural hospitals. I think it's a mistake. I've said that from the beginning, and my view hasn't changed at all. So I'm going to work with anybody across the aisle, I don't care who it is, to make sure we do not cut rural hospitals ever, period.
Josh Hawley is now willing to work across the aisle with anyone who he can to make sure that rural hospitals are not cut in the funding in the bill that he voted to cut rural hospitals in. Also, these Medicaid provisions that will also kick tons of people off. He's trying to avoid all of these things by introducing this bill. There's Josh Hawley's bill to repeal or to block the things that he voted for in the bill that they called beautiful. Really fast. I know Senate speak and especially bill talk is kind of crazy, but the point of this, and from the top, is to repeal the changes to Medicaid, state provider tax authority, and state directed payments made by the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and provide increased funding for the Rural Health Transformation Program. Why should he have to do that? And why should he also tell a reporter he hated all these things about the bill, but still voted for it and still have any kind of credibility left to think that he won't screw you over again? This is only to save face. So the New York Times talked about the things that are in this and the way that he's trying to, I guess, work around making himself look a little bit better about this whole thing. It says his bill would also double a rural hospital fund to $100 billion from $50 billion and extend the fund's lifespan from 5 years to 10. Republican leaders had agreed to include the $50 billion to assuage concerns from Mr. Hawley and other Republicans that the Medicaid cuts would shutter some remote hospitals. I just want to give you guys a full glimpse into what Hawley is talking about. President Trump has always said we have to protect Medicaid for working people. Now is the time to prevent any future cuts to Medicaid from going into effect. That's what his statement said on this bill. He did not take issue with a strict work requirement to qualify for Medicaid that Republicans made law through their domestic policy bill. So in what amounted to a 360-degree turn to his original position opposing the Medicaid cuts that are now law, he also added, I want to see Medicaid reductions stopped in rural hospitals, fully funded. If you wanted to see that, maybe you shouldn't vote for something that didn't do it. I think we already know that. One more piece from this article. Hawley had vowed in a statement released after the Senate passed the policy bill, after they passed it. He said he wanted to continue to do everything in my power to reverse future cuts to Medicaid. But that promise rings somewhat hollow, given that his new bill is unlikely to garner the support needed to become law. That's the other part about this whole thing. He knows this bill isn't going anywhere, but this is his chance to save face and say, you know, you guys, I tried to save the rural hospitals. I tried to save the folks that are going to get booted off of healthcare, but I'm still in favor of these work requirements, which is their vehicle for booting people off of healthcare. So as he's still supporting those things openly, he didn't say I'm also against the work requirements. He's still in favor of those. And also he's in favor of saving some of these hospitals. And he's also in favor of making sure some folks don't get booted off of healthcare and some other provisions that they voted for. He's going to say, you guys, I tried. You guys see my bill that I introduced after the bill that I said was the best one that's ever been passed? Oh, right before I then said it sucked. They know that you don't have enough time to sift through all of their lies, the bills that they present, the votes that they made before, to then say, this guy's an effing liar. This guy shouldn't be in the Senate. This guy doesn't represent the people that voted for him. He doesn't care. That's what this whole thing has been. Josh Hawley doesn't care. He doesn't want to do his job. But what he will bring up is a similar thing that Lisa Murkowski brought up when she was called out for voting for this bill after saying that it sucks. I'm just doing something for the people of my state. I know everyone else will suffer, but I'm trying to do something for the people of my state.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that.
I don't like it. I don't like that some people will be disadvantaged by it. This is how the game works. Vote for some trash. Say you don't really like all of it because you expected it to maybe get negotiated further, and then when it doesn't, because as we know, there was a hardcore July 3rd or 4th deadline that they had on this that all of them were aware of and very afraid of crossing the president on. After you then vote for all that, you say you hated it and you hoped it was going to be different. Then you say, but the only reason that I did vote for it because I have to take this one win that I had where I'm helping the people of my state. It's not really helping the people of my state, though, but I need to say that. And now Josh Hawley took it one step further and said, I introduced a bill to try and undo the things that I openly supported. There's only the reason you go through all of this to break down the complete lies and the way that they're manipulating and jerking people around is to then remember that and vote their asses out. I always want to go back to this CBS News report that talked about the things that are happening to these rural hospitals.
We were there as workers covered the emergency room signs at Midcoast Medical Center in Trinity, Texas. The sight of medical workers leaving for the last time, signaling this is one of the latest rural hospitals to shut its doors.
I think how sad it is.
Marjorie Polvino runs the hospital board.
It has a huge impact on the committee. We will lose lives. 400 people a month come here.
In the East Texas piney woods, Midcoast was more than a building. It was a lifeline where babies were born and where the heart of Kathy Courtney's 90-year-old husband was restarted, saving his life.
How many times have you used this facility recently?
I'd say about 6 times in the last 14 months.
The closure, hospital officials tell us, was driven by the same factors that have closed other rural hospitals. Low reimbursement rates from elderly patients' Medicare and Medicaid coverage, which made up most of the hospital's budget. Hospitals in urban areas get significantly more reimbursement from their patients who have private insurance, which tends to pay more. Republican proposed cuts to Medicaid could leave more than 8.5 million people uninsured and force even more rural hospitals to close. A new report finds almost 750 rural hospitals are at risk of closing.
So, Janet, when these rural hospitals close and folks end up having to drive a long way, what's the overall impact on their health as a result?
They often give up on preventative care, things like regular checkups, and that can lead to the delayed, diagnosis of something like a serious illness like cancer.
What about the effect of these hospitals closing on the community, Janet?
It is beyond the hospital. These hospital workers shopped in the stores, they ate in the restaurants. If they move to a new area for a new job, that affects the real estate market, the school district, property taxes. These rural hospitals are more than health care. They really are the heartbeat of the community.
Those are the real life effects. And that's what Josh Hawley's trying to make sure he covers his ass over, as he actually doesn't care and it won't actually work because he knew it wouldn't. What they cared about was getting that one thing across, and he got it across. Just main thing, don't forget it.